Welcome to the Empowering Industry Podcast, a production from Empowering Pumps and Equipment as the voice of the pump and related equipment industry. Hey everybody, welcome to episode 101 of the Empowering Industry Podcast. This is coming out January 10th, Bethany's birthday. I'm your host, Charli Matthews, and I'm joined by my co-host, Bethany Womack. And like I said, it's her birthday!
Aww.
So celebrate. This is my attempt of confetti here.
I like it.
Yeah,
I'll take
okay.
I've got some balloons randomly laying around in the recording studio, so
it's her
there
birthday. So y'all give her a shout out for her birthday. And it's a welcome back to, season 3. And
what a fun story. Yeah. So season 3, it's weird because I've lost time, I feel like, in the past few years. And what is time anymore? But all of a sudden we're on our 3rd season of doing this, starting our year 3, I guess, of this whole venture. And it's so fun. And I'm so thankful to you, Charli, for saying, let's do it. I'm thankful to our audience. It's coming back to listen to all of our interviews and our fun things we have planned for you. And so really, I'm just thankful and I'm happy to be back. And I hope that everyone is happy to be back with us. Surely you are, or you wouldn't be listening, right?
True story. True story.
Also, January 10th is Alabama is playing for a national football championship. I think we should go on record just with our predictions. So what do you?
We're gonna win. I always believe that we're gonna win. So even when the Aggies beat us, I still believed that we were gonna win.
Even when the Aggies beat you, I believed you were gonna win. So it's fine. I'm gonna go Alabama by 2 touchdowns. But it'll be a good game. I mean, it's a rematch. It's all good.
It's going to be tough. I like a challenge. But yeah, we're going Roll Tide all the way.
Okay. So let us know when you're watching this in the future how right Charli and I were. Okay, but to get to our show, we're really excited to have you here with us. Thanks for choosing us. Do us a favor, leave a rating and review. It helps other podcast listeners find us. And what we're going to do here today is we're going to connect, inform, and educate you, which is really the mission of Empowering Brands as a whole. We want to connect you by talking about social media. We're going to inform you by previewing the news, and then we're going to educate you by sharing a really good industry interview with you today.
Okay, but before we go into our show, let's talk about our year. I mean, we just ran past that. It's a new year, but we did a lot last year. We had a lot. I mean, creating the podcast is definitely just a fabulous everyday kind of what are we going to talk about that I loved. And so we have lots of that. Not so many pictures of us, but lots of recordings of us.
Lots of video footage for the pals of history.
I think it was over 2,600 minutes that we recorded, which I think is amazing.
That's insane. I'll take it.
Yeah. But looking back at the year as a whole, mine probably started most of my adventures in June. We didn't have a lot of events. So June we went to Chicago, and that was full of adventure and fun and meeting new people, which we love. And then October and November and December were jam-packed.
So busy. Yeah. So busy. I don't know what happened. I blinked and it was gone.
Exactly. There's so much. And you were there for a lot of it, Bethany. So thank you for being my partner in crime with that, and the team, of course. But what is one thing, from your year that you can think of?
I get a lot out of this podcast and learning and being able to bring some of that knowledge to you, our listeners. But it's just, I feel like it was a year of finding our new normal in a lot of different ways. The pandemic is going to ebb and flow like it does. We just have to learn to live our life again and not think we're going back to the past and how things used to be. And so finding that new way for us to do events safely and finding ways to connect with our audience in different ways, like doing video for this podcast and all of those kind of things. I find a lot of pride in professionally that we were able to do that. And I'm proud of ourselves, and it was a good year. It's very hard for me to
creative,
believe.
don't you?
Yes.
Yeah, it's super creative, and I think that you get to use your gifts. She's more creative than I am, I think. But putting all that together, I think it is. It's we go back to the basics. Who's our community? What do we want to build for them? And then we take our creativity and resources and build it. And I think, yeah, we created some really cool stuff. So I think all in all, pretty happy, right?
Good year. And here we are in 2022. I don't know how long it's going to take me to get used to saying that, but we're going to make a good effort to do that this year. And we have some fun things coming up for you right off the bat. So announcement time. First off, we have our Sustainability Summit coming up on February 14th. It'll be live on the day of. I really encourage attending live because then you get some interaction with people and get to talk to the speakers. But then it'll also be available on demand after. We're going to talk about infrastructure, building decarbonization in an electrical grid, green solutions, pump and equipment efficiency, DEI, and more. And there's still some sponsorships available for that. Definitely email Vince. He'd be more than happy to talk to you about that. And I think it's a good way to start the year and start talking about one of the new pillars that we really want to focus on here at Empowering, which is sustainability.
Absolutely. We're going to talk about it all year, but, a special month, we're going to pull all these experts together to, have it on the schedule where you can set aside your time to invest time in learning with us. We're also really excited about our digital magazine. It comes out next week, and we'll go into it a little bit more detail. But the cover story is digital turbomachinery designs, simulation, and optimization for the HVAC industry, which I love because AHR is at the end of the month. And, I'm also really excited because we've upgraded the digital magazine.
It's real cool, y'all. I'm just saying. I've been on some meetings. I've seen some demos. I'm pretty excited about it.
Yeah, and it's because we are able to give the reader, who a lot of the times it's a mobile reader, right? You're on the go, which we'll talk about later.
Yes.
But, we want to make it easy for everyone to get the content, whether it's on our website or this digital edition. And another part of that creativity, all of our team contributes to that book, and I love it. I'd love to be able to share that. And now our customers are going to have even more opportunities to, share their content in many different ways, such as video and promotions that you'll just have to ask me about if you want to know more. So look for that next week coming out, and I guess we'll go over a little bit more Monday.
Yes, definitely. It's a really fun digital experience. You're going to love it. So next week, we'll talk about it more. And now it's time to get social. This is where we're going to talk to you about something you need to know in social media going on in the industry.
Yes, and I'm really excited to share this. We are going to have a new weekly feature on the podcast and in all of our other things. We are going to feature Manufacturing Monday. Now, we didn't come up with this ourselves, but the manufacturing industry, it's vital to our workforce, and we appreciate that. And on Mondays, the industry comes together using this hashtag to highlight different things that they're doing. And we wanted to do that for our partners. That makes sense, for manufacturing. And so this week, our first manufacturer that we're going to feature is ABB. ABB is a partner of ours, of course, and they are a leading global technology company that energizes the transformation of society and industry to achieve more productive and sustainable future. Hold the phone. That sounds amazing, right?
Love it. Yeah.
So ABB drives are flexible for you to optimize all of your processes and controls, and reliable for less downtime, which again, we love to talk about on here. So thank you, ABB, for being a partner of ours. We look forward to highlighting you for Manufacturing Monday. So follow that hashtag and look for a way that you can engage as well.
Yes. Next, we want to invite you to our virtual meetups for January. Same thing as our meetups as we've been doing. We just rolled them into 2022 for you. So the Empowering Women's Meetup is going to be the second Wednesday of every month. This month, it'll be Wednesday, January 12th at 11 a.m. Central Time. And then Empowering Brands is going to be January 18th, which is every third Tuesday.
It
at
is
3
going to
p.m.
be in the morning. It's going to be in the morning. We changed
Sorry.
that this year, and I forgot to tell Bethany. So it's going to be 10 a.m. Central Time. So that's 10 a.m. Central Time on the every third Tuesday. And now we did that swap. A couple of reasons. Vince is in Italy, and of course, we want him to be able to join us on the meetups. And then also, we felt like we were kind of abandoning our European customers, right? So,
He's coming to us from our European headquarters, okay?
yes,
Empowering
exactly.
the European branch. We've shifted the time, but that's awesome. I'm
Yes,
excited. Bring some
perfect.
coffee. Yeah. You do need to pre-register for those events. The link will be in the show notes. When you pre-register, you'll be sent the Zoom link. And so come, turn your camera on, bring your coffee or your afternoon beverage of choice, and join us. We'll be excited to see you.
Yes. And we're also really excited when you give us a shout out. So if you will mention us at Empowering Pumps or using the hashtag Empowering Industry Podcast, we take that as a shout out and then we return the favor and give one back to you. So
I'm laughing already preemptively because this first shout out, the story is so good. We met this guy at TPS and he deserves a super epic shout out now.
yes.
Go for it, Charli.
Okay, so Eric Lunsford, he is the president of Pie Baker, and
Pie Barker.
I mean Barker. I said Baker. I'm hungry. It's morning. So Pie Barker, and so Eric Lunsford, president of Pie Barker, he is amazing. First of all, because he came up to our booth at TPS and he said, I love the podcast, right? And we just were like, you listen to the podcast? Really? A live human? Like,
So
I was
what happened
amazed.
was he walked past our booth one time when Charli wasn't there, and he says to me, "Love the podcast," and he keeps walking, and I'm like, "Was that real? Did that just happen, or did I imagine it?" And then I'm telling Charli, and she goes, "You didn't stop him and ask
Who
him
is
who
he?
he was? I need to know." And then him and his colleague came back by the next day and had this whole conversation, and it was really fun.
It was. And, you know, a lot of the times, not a lot of the times people can stump me, but he was able to stump me and really like put me on the spot. So you can ask Eric about it, give him a shout out, say, hey, we heard you on the podcast. Tell me this story about Charli. But we are going to invite him on the podcast.
Yes.
I've already done that. And this time was going to happen. We're going to have him as a person on there. So fun stories, fun time seeing people, you know, at a trade show for one, but then that follow us in our podcast too. And that are in the industry and relevant, you know, it was wonderful. Okay. So, Rich D'Amato, he has been a favorite podcast, one of the top listened to, you know, and it's because, you know, ESG is so important to us and our brand. And it's great to see that it's also important to our listeners.
Yeah.
But I was so happy to see that he is now on the board of Water for People because, you know, we talked about that on the podcast of his and you could just tell the passion was there. So excited for that. And then I just have to say, when I get to look at these hashtags and different subscribers and everything, I get super excited and go down that wormhole of Charli investigating who these people are. So Vatsal Patel is a subscriber on our YouTube, and he has a video of Dr. John Brittle on his page. And that is a professor from California State Polytech University. And he's actually teaching and recorded this video on pumps in a parallel series. And I've learned this long ago that just because you add a pump doesn't mean you get twice as the amount of flow and all the stuff that you need. And I was just so happy to see that and see that it's relevant and being taught in schools. And so these are the things that I like to hear about and the people we like to meet. And so if you know somebody, you know, mention them and send them our way.
That's one of the fun things about YouTube is that when you follow someone and you can really look at your followers and find who else they're following, and it gives you even more like limitless connections that you could make in the industry. And I think it's a really, really cool feature of the platform in general that, you know, we're excited about.
Yes.
We're really excited about a lot of things today. Maybe I'll get that out of my system. It's been a month, Charli. We haven't recorded in a month. And so I've got all this pent up energy just here for
Yes,
the
it's for
podcast.
you. It's for you,
Yes.
the listener. We have just been holding on to it so we could give it back to you today.
Don't give me a poor rating. I'll reel it in for next week. Okay. But now we're going to start the meat of our social media segment, where it's actually the start of a series where we're going to talk to you about all the stats you need to know about social media from this past year. And then in future episodes, we're going to be talking about what that means and implications and what you do with this information that we've given you. So I pulled data from a lot of reports. And when I say there's a lot of reports, I'm underselling how many places on the internet you can go to find data about how many people use social media. And what that tells me is that if I'm a marketer and I'm looking for information, I got to go through a lot to find stuff that's relevant. So I pulled all of that and I pulled what I think is relevant for our industry and the marketers that we work with. So it's all in one spot, easy to review. And we're going to go over some of those numbers with you today.
Okay, so let's start. This is the general stats. And thank you, Bethany, for reading through all of that for all of us. Okay, 4.5 billion social media users around the world saw almost 10% growth in 2021. Current trends project that we will pass 60% of the world population sometimes around the first half of 2022.
And I just want to highlight what I think is insane about this is when you're looking at the entire world population, we're also talking about, a billion children who aren't even old enough to have access to a social media yet. So like, I don't even know what the numbers would be if you like pulled that out and looked at a percentage of, 13 plus aged people.
Yeah, I mean, it's more. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so monthly active users, which I think is really important. I'm just going to go through this list. Facebook, 2.8 billion. YouTube, 2.3 billion. Instagram, 1.4 billion. TikTok, 1 billion. Twitter, 463 million. LinkedIn, 800 million active users. It didn't really have a time frame, but a lot of people, right? Like, are using social media.
Yeah. Just a caveat, LinkedIn doesn't report its monthly active users. They just say active and don't tell you how long. So we'll just go with it. But I just put that in there just so it's kind of what we're talking about.
The facts here. We're trying to deliver the facts to you.
It's all this pressure. I can't give you false information. Okay. So general stats continued. 99% of those people that use social media. So we're talking 4.4 billion social media users access it on a mobile device. And when we're talking about mobile devices, TikTok and Instagram saw the most significant growth in worldwide app downloads in 2021. And then
yeah, I have to just say, I mean, we knew this. We knew people were moving to a mobile device. But if you think about how many people and the amount of time that they're spending on this is really something that you need to pay attention to for your marketing.
Global average time a person spends on social media is 2.5 hours.
Wow.
It's a lot. It kind of makes you like evaluate what you're doing a little bit, as far as your marketing for sure, but then in your own life, but you can look at it a lot of different ways. But one of the ways that stuck out to me is that, assuming you spend 2.5 hours on social media, that equals 36.5 days a year on platforms for all of their users, 16 plus. That's a lot of time. And, I think you could look at that number and be scared, but you could also look at it as like people are connecting and they're finding different ways to connect. And we as marketers can be there to make that a positive experience,
Yeah. And I think you have to think about all the different things that are social media, which we'll get into a little bit, but that's really important because you're not just on there like posting about your breakfast. There's a lot of things that we're doing that are really important on social today.
Well, and one of the top 7 has over 1 billion users is WhatsApp. And that's not something that I think of as a social media network. It's not something you do marketing on really, but worldwide and globally, a lot of people use that as a messaging app, So
it's how it's how I talk to my friends that are outside of the U.S., including
with the Italian headquarters of empowering. Okay, what's my next stat? 54% of social browsers use it to research products. more than 1 in 5 internet users age 16 to 64 now listen to a podcast each week. I included that fun little fact in
I
here
love
for
that.
our podcast. And in a HubSpot poll, over 1,000 plus marketer professionals, or 79%, sorry, in a HubSpot poll of over 1,000 marketers, 79% of them report buying paid advertising on social media. And so I just think, that's showing us a continued trend and a shift towards spending real marketing dollars in social media.
Yeah, because there's so many people on there and they're sharing content, and you do have to kind of upgrade your spending there to get what you want out to be seen by the right people. So we love that. We love helping our customers do that as well. Okay, let's do a deep dive. Facebook, 2.9 billion active users in October 2021, ranking it the top on the social media platforms. Yes, I said that. Facebook, the top social media platform.
I think it'll be a while before that is not. It's like the grandfather.
That's right.
So fans come at me. I don't care.
That's right. So 69% of US adults are on Facebook. Even though it's still the most popular network, the demographic, we saw, an increase of the people that were 55 and older. That was the increase in Facebook. There was a decline in every other group. I think that's mostly because they're joining other social media platforms that are designed for them. But Facebook is still the world's third most visited website behind Google and YouTube.
Yeah. And now onto TikTok, which I find a little funny that we're talking about TikTok on our 101st episode, because on our very first episode, we talked about your son teaching you how to TikTok.
It's still on there.
Yes. And now we're talking about it in a more relevant way to businesses and what it's going to mean in the future. But so just in stats wise, at the beginning of September this past year, it passed 1 billion monthly active users. It only took 24 months for this network to be on 1 in 5 devices that the internet is available on, which is crazy to me. It's 7th in the list of the world's most active social media platforms. And this is all really impressive for a numbers nerd, like I'm assuming all of you are, because it's still currently blocked in India, which accounts for 15% of the global internet population. So to be able to reach that number without having one of the most populous countries in the world is it's just fascinating. Yes. And users between 18 and 24 account for 45% of the global reach that advertisers see on the platform.
Okay. I think it's interesting. I think it actually is really easy to use. I was doing a little bit of work on that over the holidays, and I love that you just create it there and can share it on any other platform. You can download it to your phone. It's just very flexible, and I think probably those users appreciate that.
Yeah.
But I still love Instagram. It's still my favorite. Instagram has 1.4 billion active users. Half of Instagram's active users are checking stories daily. I do that. I'm going to check Bethany's story if she posts one. So in 2022, 58% of marketers plan to leverage Instagram Reels, us included. 90% of Instagram users follow a business profile, us included. If you're not following us, please do. And then I love this part. 67% of Gen Zs and 57% of millennials use the platform, in comparison to only 38% of Gen X, because Gen X is over there, on one of the other platforms, right? But I just love it, this trend of using the different platforms based on your age and your preferences and like your ability to use technology. I think it'll just continue to trend that way.
Yeah, agreed. And we're seeing a shift in the workforce and recruiting to being even towards a younger audience. Mm-hmm. And so I think it can only benefit you to continue to not look at generational data for these networks as much, but look at it for the potential of what you can do with it and how many people you can reach.
That's right. And if the word millennial scares you, I'm a millennial and I'm 40. So that's not somebody who's not working. Okay. Just to throw that out there.
I got a little triggered on all of these things talking about like Gen Z, and I'm like, that's young kids, whatever. Just kidding. Okay, LinkedIn, they have 800 million active users in 200 countries. 60% of LinkedIn users are 25 to 34. It's still the top paid for organic social for B2B, which is mostly who we're talking to here. And so we've done some deep dives on LinkedIn. I think we'll continue to do those on this podcast because of how useful it is for a lot of B2B people working in this space. And this stat I had never heard before, but I thought was really interesting, that almost 46% of social media traffic to a company's website comes from LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Be sharing
You better
links.
be posting.
That's what I got to say. Yeah.
You better be posting something relevant.
Yeah. And then in October 2021, 790 million users were reached with a LinkedIn ad, which is a huge number, something to think about.
Yeah, and I think we should go into that maybe a little bit on another episode. But there's so much that you can do on LinkedIn. I'm going to talk about YouTube and Twitter real quick. YouTube is 2.3 billion active monthly users. YouTube is the second largest search engine globally behind Google. We've told y'all that. If you're not on YouTube, get on YouTube. It accounts for more than 25% of total worldwide mobile traffic. My kids are on it. I'm on it on my mobile device, right?
Yeah.
So mobile devices alone, YouTube reaches more adults aged 18 to 24 than any other TV network. I think that's fascinating. I don't even think they're going to use TV anymore.
I just want, that's got to be scaring some TV execs somewhere, right?
Yes. They're like, okay, how do I get my network on a mobile device? Yeah. Okay. Twitter reached 211 million daily active users in the third quarter of 2021. According to HubSpot, 79% of marketers will continue investing in Twitter Spaces for 2022. Good, because I needed to hear that because I've been wanting to do that and I just have to put it on the calendar, right? So that's my advice. Put it on the calendar.
That's definitely that stat I think was a push that I needed to circle back. Because we told y'all about Twitter Spaces, we talked about it, but then it wasn't something we pursued as we were doing some other things. But it is a good reminder that, hey, that's where people are putting their time and effort. That's where we can meet our community, I think.
That's right. And it does. It kind of clarifies it and says, okay, we can be there. We can spend time there for you.
Yeah.
Tweets with the hashtags get 100% more engagement. Duh, y'all. Use a hashtag. I love it. I love Twitter. I love, YouTube and the way that we can combine all these networks together.
So we've thrown a lot of numbers and stats at you. I don't expect you to hold them all in your brain until next week. There's a blog. It's on Empowering Brands. You can go and check it out. And then if you have any questions about any of it, send me a message on LinkedIn. Send us something on Twitter. Just connect with us and use that Empowering Industry hashtag. We'd love to have a conversation with you about it. But my top takeaways that I got from reading all of these numbers and looking at the stats is that everyone is on social media a whole lot.
Yeah.
A lot of time, and most of that time is on a mobile device. So you really need to be thinking about how to optimize mobile use. My second takeaway was that it's time to stop fighting the TikTok battle. And maybe I need to get an account, start figuring out what it's all about, and start looking at it for empowering brands. And then lastly, anytime you spend creating a short form video, it's going to render you a return in impressions, a high return in impressions. Mm-hmm. So time well spent, I think, was what I took away from all of this.
Yeah. And I'll just kind of emphasize on Instagram Reels. We saw that when we created kind of the same photos in a reel, it would have, let's say I had 100, it's going to have 1,000 as far as impressions. So I think that it's definitely worth taking a look at. How can you create some of this static content into this more dynamic videos so that we can get more people to see it, because that's how it's working.
And we know right now that Instagram is prioritizing Reels and prioritizing people seeing Reels. We don't know how long their algorithm's going to be like that. And so it's like, don't pass up this golden opportunity where you can make a piece of content that Instagram's going to prioritize showing people.
That's right. Okay.
Oh, man. Okay. Well, that was it for social. And now we're going to move into the news. This is where we're going to preview news that's coming out on the Empowering Pumps and Equipment newsletter this week. That comes to your email inbox twice a week. Check it out. If you're not signed up, go ahead and do it. There's actually a link on our podcast page where you can sign up for the newsletter as well.
Yeah, my turn.
Yeah, sorry.
She's letting me go first with my news item. Okay, so I wanted to tell you about a webinar. This is Hydraulic Designs of Multi-Stage Pumps. So this is part 2. It's by CF Turbo, and it's on bowl diffuser optimization. This is a free 1-hour webinar led by Ralph Peter Mueller from CF Turbo, which we saw at TPS, and Sasha Hancock. And we are really excited about this, as we are everything else on this episode. Yeah. They will be presenting on the bowl diffuser optimization for multi-stage centrifugal pumps, which I said that already. 2 different design techniques optimizing your workflows will be demonstrated, including a model setup and CFD, computational fluid dynamics simulation results. Wow. So I know it's one of my favorite ones that I learned a long time ago, but I did stumble. It happens. So anyway, part 3, it will be available February 2022. You can see that on Empowering Pumps as well. And so check it out if you need. Well, we're going to include these links for you in the show notes.
And also really good, CF Turbo is also the cover story on our digital magazine that's coming out. A lot of good content coming from them that we're excited to share and think will be very valuable for you. The story that I'm going to preview for you today comes to us from Armstrong Fluid Technology and is titled How the Capabilities for Performance Tracking in Pump Manager Can Alert Operators and Help Avoid Unnecessary HVAC Costs. Which is a really relevant story that you should all read before going into AHR, which is coming up at the end of the month. What I loved about this article is that it had 4 to 5 just examples of how this product has worked in the field and how it's prevented serious negative outcomes that could have happened had they not had this product, this remote monitoring in place. And it just kind of details each of those scenarios, which is a really fun read. I'm just going to do one for you. It talked about a deadhead scenario where Pump Manager saw this. So it's an example from a project in Bahrain where the system showed pumps were running close to shutoff heads. And the customer said, I'm not really seeing it, but okay, I'll go and check, do a physical examination. And then they were shocked to learn that the valve was actually closed and there was no flow at all. Had it been left unaddressed, the deadhead status of the pumps could have led to seal failure, motor failure, and in extreme cases, fluid leaks. So just it's fascinating, I feel like.
Yeah, and I think I'm glad you mentioned AHR because that's coming up at the end of the month. And I've seen the Pump Manager there on display at their booth in the past. And make sure you go and ask them about it. They'll be happy to talk to you and give you the details.
Yeah. Check out the article. You can see several different, like mini case studies almost of how the product has worked and in different situations. It's really interesting to read heading into AHR for sure. So now we get to move into probably our favorite part of the show and why we really do this show. Charli loves connecting people. She's our super connector who goes out and finds awesome people in the industry that you need to hear from. And I'm really excited about the interview we have today.
Yeah, and I think we both saw this person on the stage and we're like, we need to talk to him.
Yeah.
So Jamie, he is the president of Water Environment Federation, or WEF. He is an associate vice president, a senior project manager for HDR in Denver. He is an active member of WEF since college, participated in their student chapter events, which ultimately led him to a job. So take note of that.
Yeah,
led him to his first job in the water sector. He's a member of Rocky Mountain Water Environment Association, where he served as president before joining the House of Delegates, where he served as the Speaker of the House in 2015 and 2016. He's been on several WEF committees, including the Government Affairs, Public Communication Outreach, which I thought was very important to mention.
Also and very apt to his skill set, I feel like.
Absolutely. Absolutely. He also, of course, has been on finance and audit committees. He's a professional engineer that earned his bachelor's and master's degree, both in environmental engineering from Colorado School of Mines, which we have had several people on the podcast from that school. They are cranking out some amazing people over there. And so, Jamie, I really appreciate you, when you're listening to this, taking the time to speak with us.
Yeah, so much agree. I'm really looking forward to sharing this interview with all of our audience. Listen to the whole thing, come back, and then we'll kind of talk about what we thought. So without further delay, here's the podcast. No, without further delay, here's the interview.
Welcome, Jamie. I'm so happy to have you on the Empowering Industry podcast. I'll just start by letting you introduce yourself to everyone.
Great. Thanks, Charli. So I'm Jamie Eichenberger. I'm an associate vice president with HDR Engineering in Denver, Colorado. But I'm also privileged to be serving as the president of the Water Environment Federation this year.
Yeah, and that's where I got introduced to you. I saw you on the stage at WEFTech, and I was impressed. I have to say, anytime that someone starts talking about storytelling and using the marketing and media aspect, I'm like, okay, I need to know this person. But there's a lot more to it, and we'll get to several of those things I want to talk to you about. But right now, I think everybody is really interested in, what are we going to do as an organization such as WEF? With the infrastructure bill and all there's so much in there, but what is really important to the water industry?
Well, I think with the infrastructure bill, this is something we've been working on for a long time. So I just thank all of our members and other kind of grassroots activists that kind of came up, reached out to their Congress members and let them know how important infrastructure funding was, but in particular, how important water infrastructure funding was. You mentioned some of the marketing and storytelling. I think that's something that we've struggled with. We've been quiet. It's easy to see roads. It's hard to see the pipes underneath them. But we did end up with $550 billion in new infrastructure funding. So that's in addition to kind of what we see as a baseline. And that came with the significant investment in the water infrastructure side as well. So I think the important thing for us as we go through this is to make sure that we're reaching out to all of our member utilities and other folks that we know have needs and make sure that they're working with their state funding agencies to get on their state intended use plans so they know where that money is going to go, really show the need for it and start to get those projects out. The infrastructure funding bill is much needed, but it is politics. So we need to be able to show those shovel-ready projects, start getting some of that work out the door and going. We fought a long time to get this funding. We know it's not enough, but it's a good step in the right direction. So if we want to come back and get another shot at this down the road, we better show some success with it. So I think that's some of the important stuff that we're looking for. For those who don't know, a lot of that funding is going to come through the existing funding mechanisms, the SRF programs, WIFIA. There's a whole slew of programs that are available to be able to apply through. And one thing I'm really excited about is a lot of those are typically loan programs, but there's an increased kind of capacity for either 0% or negative percent loans. And I always love negative interest rate loans. They don't like to say grant anymore, but basically more grant funding coming out of this than we've seen in the past too.
Yeah, well, that's interesting. And, I was curious how people, that really have a mission to help can help, or if they need, they need this kind of funding to get things running. We're always looking, especially in the kind of pumps and equipment world of, how do these projects actually get funded? We know that we can have more efficient plants and that type of thing, but how do we do that? And so it's really great to have a resource. I know you have many teams there at WEF that can help and direct people. So I'm excited for that. And I love, this talk of sustainability and what we're really trying to do as a whole, which I'm going to shift gears just a little bit and kind of deep dive into you because I love this on the show. I get to know people. And over the last 100 episodes, we just celebrated last year 100 episodes. I have found all of these people who have graduated from the Colorado School of Mines. And I just thought that was interesting. How is it something about that area that kind of brings y'all together with the sustainability aspect?
I think so. So I graduated high school in 2000. And when I came out, I grew up in Valdez, Alaska, which unfortunately tends to be famous for oil spills. But it's this beautiful place that's a big industry town with great just opportunities to interact with nature and all that. And as a result of the 1989 oil spill out there, there was a really strong environmental community. So seeing how industry and the environment could really work together was exciting to me. So looking at different career paths, environmental engineering kind of jumped out for me. And at the time, there were only a handful of schools that were graduating folks out of environmental engineering. There's a lot more now, but that kind of put Colorado School of Mines on my short list. As I went around and looked at different schools, I will say one of the things that drew me there is it's just beautiful. It's in Golden, Colorado, and skiing is great. There's mountain biking, there's climbing, there's running, there's all kinds of stuff through there. So I say I came for the skiing and I stayed for the education, but I still live about 6 blocks from school. I haven't been able to move away from Golden since then. But the program they have there is really outstanding. It's science and engineering based school. So there's not a lot of liberal arts options and other things. So it's pretty small. It's really focused, and it had just some fantastic professors and technical resources there. I still stay in touch with all of my professors. I get the opportunity to go and give a seminar, give talks every now and again, and I'm always hitting them up for who their best graduates are, so we can keep filling the pipeline behind us.
Absolutely. And I think that, based on the people that I've spoken to, it really is churning out some really amazing people with that sustainability mindset. And I think part of that, you talked about industry and environmental and kind of this nature. And I think what we have right now in the water industry is a tough situation. I know some of that funding that we have received will go towards solving this issue with PFAS. And I think we have to look at that from, okay, this has been used in a lot of our industry, and maybe there's not replacements for all chemicals. And so what is it that we can do, and how can we do that to the best of our ability? And so I think that that's a great leadership to have in place that kind of understands those two worlds together of figuring out how it is. Water is vital to life, and so is a lot of the industries that keeps us running. So excited to have you on board with that. And one other thing that I thought was really neat, kind of in your LinkedIn bio, is that you took this certificate for DEI. And I think I'd like to know a little bit more about kind of why you did that and how that's helping you now.
Absolutely. So back in 2018, WEF updated our strategic plan, and we added a strategic goal specifically around increasing diversity, equity, and inclusion in the water sector. And Brookings Institution had come out with a report earlier that year that really underscored what we probably all know and have experienced, that as a whole, we are overwhelmingly older, whiter, and more male than the population at large in the communities we serve. And working with WEF over the last few years, it's been really enlightening for me. I will say, as one of the getting older white males, this is something that never occurred to me before, because I was on the winning side of that. But starting to understand a little bit more about some of the challenges that some of our members that don't meet those categories are in. They might not feel like they belong. They might not see a place for them in the water sector. Really got me digging in more to this and becoming a lot more interested. So my President-elect Ifeitayo Venner, who's coming up on the WEF board behind me, she had sent this out to a handful of people from University of Southern Florida. They did an online certificate program. It's a free program. It was 14 weeks, and they had a lot of 7 weeks, 14 hours. They had a lot of really good information on there on how you can make tangible, meaningful changes in your organization to move it forward. So I'd spent the last couple of years, and we had heard a lot of things about the need for it and a lot of support for it. But one of the things that I think we always struggle with is we want to do something, but what are the tangible actions we can take to really do that? So I signed up for that course and really enjoyed it. It was great. They had a variety of kind of lectures and panel discussions and associated reading to go along with it. And I think it came with some great things that we can implement for both at WEF as well as within our day jobs. So whether it's a consulting company or utility, just some things around hiring practices. We mentioned Colorado School of Mines. I obviously think that the best engineers come out of Colorado School of Mines. Right. But I will say this is one of the things that can be an unintended consequence of going back to the same pools, looking for the same talent. We may end up with the same demographics over and over again. So looking out to some other schools that have really strong programs, have really great students, but we don't know about them because their students aren't coming into the water industry now. So no one who's in the water industry is going back to their alma mater to do it. So are there ways that we can put together, diverse hiring groups that allow us to look at resumes based on qualifications, ignoring names, ignoring photos, ignoring where you went to school, when you graduated, just letting you know what the degree program was, and then allowing them to come in and really shortlist some of the top candidates, and then allowing those to move forward. These are tried and true things that are kind of easy wins that we can take. So that's just one example of the things I learned through that course. I think they're going to be offering it again, although I haven't seen the exact dates, but I'd recommend anyone who's interested in this to do it. I think it's great for anyone who supervises people, anyone in a management position, and something that we all need to be a lot more vocal about.
Yeah, I really think that, I'd like to see the actions, what you said. It is hard to figure out, okay, what do I do? It seems kind of daunting that you can even have, any type of effect on this, but it is to each person taking an action, and we can definitely, sign up for 7 weeks to do something. And then it becomes kind of this habit of thought, okay, this is how I'm going to kind of better myself in the industry.
And if I can say one more
ahead.
thing on that
Yes.
too, is
Absolutely.
beyond the program I did at USF, WEF has made a significant investment over the last several years on this too. And one of the things we did is we engaged with the Silverine Group. They're a consultant to us that allows us to, is really helping us understand how we are doing as an organization, both kind of at the staff level, but also with our volunteers. And then looking ahead to beyond that is how we can help impact the water sector. So we pulled together a group of our members and pulled together a task force around this. And then a couple of things came out of that. One, we now have a permanent committee that reports to the board on diversity, equity, and inclusion that's helping make sure we continue to make meaningful progress on it. And they've been absolutely wonderful to work with. Donnell Duncan, Megan Yu Schneider have been sharing that for us. And we've seen some really positive moves. We know we have a long way to go, but it's exciting to see all of the energy around it. And you mentioned too the what can we do, and that's something through some of the stories that I've heard from people who've gotten engaged. It's amazing how many people said, I never would have gotten involved because I didn't see myself in this industry until someone reached out and asked me, or in some cases told me to come get involved, volunteer for a committee. So it can be a really overwhelming problem, but I think it's one of those things that all of us should be reaching out. And, if you see someone sitting quietly in the room or looking uncomfortable, go talk to them. Make them feel welcome. It's not enough for us to open the door. We really need to be reaching through and dragging them inside. So,
yeah, I love that. One of my standard practices is making the person that's quiet talk, and it depends on their comfort level whether they'll do that in a bigger space or not. But you're right, they will talk to you in private, so reach out. One other thing, just kind of your day job, and I think that this ties in when we're trying to look at what we can do. Your organization is an employee-owned design firm, and I think that has a unique ability to craft some of these groups maybe easier. I don't know. You tell me, what have you seen as far as your own organization working in the DEI space?
So I've been really happy with the work HDR has been doing around this. We hired a global director of diversity and inclusion a couple of years ago, Abe Carrillo, and since he's come on board, he's made some really great strides. We've developed some employee networking groups, both at the national level, but then also allowing that to go down to local level at all of our offices. So these are to bring together groups of maybe some of our underrepresented folks. So we have ones around, women who work in our workspace, Asians, the LGBTQIA community. So a lot of these different employee network groups allow people to come together. But one of the things I like is it's easy to look internally and start to solve those problems. And from a company perspective and, trying to look at bottom line and those things, there are good reasons to do it. What can be harder and what gets lost a lot of times is what can we do reaching out? And that's something I've been really happy with, is that we haven't only been internally focused, but we're looking at how we can reach out to the communities we live in, the communities we work in, the communities we're helping to support, and see, are there ways for us to get out into schools and start showing that there's a path for a STEM career for folks that may not otherwise think about it. Are there opportunities for us to look at our supply chain and see how that might be contributing to some of this lack of diversity in our water sector? Working with some of the different chambers of commerce and those sorts of things to really reach out. So that started, I'll be honest, I feel like I've lost a year with COVID. So 2 or 3 years
Yes,
ago, we brought Abe
exactly.
on. But it's been really, really positive movement to see that moving forward. And I think it's something that our employees expect as well,
Mhm.
and our future employees expect, and something we need to be doing. But I always struggle a little bit with D&I because I want to make the sales case for it and the pitch for it on the ROI. But at the end of the day, it's the right thing to do.
Mhm.
Especially with what we do in the water industry, the impacts we have on public health and our local communities, the rivers and streams we all go running around or kayaking in or whatever it may be, is hyper local. And we're serving these communities. We should reflect those communities that we're serving. And I love what I do. I love this industry. I feel like we have a really positive impact on society in general, and I want everybody to feel like they've had the same opportunities and are welcome to join us that I know that I've had.
I love that so much. And I think that that is part of what I just, wanted to talk to you about, this outreach. I think it's just natural for you to just, talk about, okay, how can we get connected? How can we share all of this passion for the industry that we have? And, talking about reaching out to other media and marketing outlets where you can share that. I mean, you talked about on the local level, the Chamber of Commerce, and I think that that's really good. I've been, currently, trying to get into that on the workforce side myself locally. And I'm from Alabama, but I can appreciate Colorado for sure. So, what have you seen that we need to do as far as kind of outreach, and then kind of what are you looking for as far from the media partners? I mean, we have a media and marketing services company, so we're kind of a new media combo. But I would love to hear, what do you need from us? How can we help share that story?
Absolutely. So I think this has been a long-standing problem for the water industry as a whole. We've had the kind of head in the sand approach. No news is good news, but
Mhm.
we can't keep doing that. Our needs are too great, and the visibility of what we do is growing every day. As I sit here, December 3rd in Denver, we haven't gotten snow yet this year. Our
Wow.
snowpacks weren't great going into the year, and we're hoping we have a really snowy winter. But the last time I just saw this on the news, 1934 was the last time that we didn't get snow this late, and that was
Wow.
November 21st. So here we are a couple weeks later, and I don't think we're expecting to get snow until next week. So that's scary, and people are
Mhm.
starting to notice. So
Mhm.
these issues around water are becoming more and more visible. So we can't stay quiet even if we wanted to. But also, why would we want to? I love what we do. Like we have such a great story to tell with what we do. I mean, fundamentally, the public health, the environmental impacts that we can have. But beyond that, economic growth. If you can't get
Mhm.
water or you can't get wastewater away from it,
Mhm.
you can't grow. Those new developments aren't going in. The new industry is not going in. So it's vital to job creation, economic growth for our communities as well. So what can we do about that? One, I think we just all need to become better storytellers as we talk to people. I evangelize about water
Yes.
to
Yes.
all of my friends and family. They're probably tired of me talking about it, but I'm like, you guys want to go on a tour of a plant? And I've done a couple of takers over the years, but being able to
You'll
tell
get more.
people
Let me
about
just say, you'll get more. The more that you talk about it, the more that they'll be fascinated by it. And I think that that is part of it. How we talk to our families does affect our local communities. And I love anytime my daughter's very vocal and social, and she'll just be telling the world about what we do here in the pump and water industry.
it. Oh, good.
But anyway, so part of that is the community, right? And our families, and being
Yeah,
able to say, what do we do? Why it's important? And water is vital to life. Our infrastructure, all the things with the infrastructure bill is so important to me. And, I have you mentioned politics. I have a little bit of stake in that just because this is what we do every day. And we want to
right.
see it be funded and really, have be able to know that we are doing our best to our abilities. And we see it, right? We live it every day. So part of that story, it does start at home.
Yeah, but you mentioned what can we do with media channels and outlets and that sort of
Mm.
thing. One, I think we just need to talk about it more. But
Mm.
two, how we talk about it's really important. And this is something where I'm an engineer, come from a very technical background, and I can get really deep in the weeds. And I have gotten it beaten out of me by some really good strategic communications and marketing professionals over the years. But I really respect and appreciate what they do, but they've got a skill set I don't have. So we need to bring more of them into the water industry. And since I've been able to travel to some of our regional meetings, I was in Kentucky, Tennessee back in July. I was at the Pacific Northwest Conference in Boise in September. And it's been really exciting to see how many public communications, strategic communications folks have been there. Folks from Rogue Water, Water PIO, some other organizations have really been able to come in, and they're there. We don't have to drag them in. We don't have to invite them. They're already there. But I was able to corner Stephanie Corso at Rogue Water and say, okay, I love this. How do I get you to keep coming? How do I get more of you here? And she was great about kind of providing some really, again, tangible, workable things that we can do. So we're going to try to make some changes within the organization a little bit too, to make those folks feel more welcome, drag them in kicking and screaming if we need to, but really get that message out about how strategic communications around water issues is important and how it can help us all out.
Yeah, I think mentioning Stephanie and Rogue Water, they're wonderful, and I absolutely love what they're doing. But they're also the point is they're giving resources on how to do that. You know, as an engineer, sometimes you're like, okay, I don't really necessarily think of myself as a storyteller, but you can be very easily, right, with the
Yeah.
tools and the process that you can kind of put in place. And I think that that's important for our industry.
And I know at HDR we have a very strong strategic communications team,
Mhm.
and I'm working with one of their groups right now. We have water storage tank project going in, and there's going to be demolition of some old tanks, some new tanks going in. It's all above ground. It's very visible. There's homeowners nearby, and we know if we could just go in and do the project. We have every legal right to do it, but I don't want to go to that city council meeting. So what we're doing is we're really bringing those homeowners along with us, helping them understand, hey, what is this facility that's been in your backyard that you've never thought about? Some of the tanks were built back in the 60s. They've exceeded their useful life and they need to be replaced. So you never have to think about turning on your water tap or flushing the toilet again, and really bringing them along with us. So there's going to be some disruption. There's going to be some construction in their backyards, may have an impact on their water rates. So these are things that impact our communities, especially the immediately surrounding community. We owe it to them to talk to them and bring it along. So I've been really impressed. I always learn something when I work with our strategic communications folks about what works, what doesn't. One of the things I really like they do, and this is something that I saw at the Kentucky Tennessee conference as well, but have a public fair or open house. So I know in Denver we've got some big community event that makes traffic to my office difficult every week, it seems like, in the summer at least. And but we have things like the People's Fair and Taste of Colorado and all these things. Let's have a booth there with water. I know Denver Water does a really good job with this. They have a water truck there, so you don't have to
Yes.
have a bunch of disposable plastic water bottles. They've got that, and then they've got staff that can talk to you about it, and really get the message out. Just get the public at large thinking more about what we do.
Well, I love it. And I think it's such a great story is just go out and tell the story of what we're doing every day. And there's plenty of opportunities, like you said, on probably a weekly basis. There's something going on that you can be involved with. And so I'll just let you have the last word here, Jamie. What do you want to leave our audience with?
As I look ahead, one of the things that I think concerns me the most, looking forward, is the workforce piece. We have a lot of folks that are aging out, happily moving into retirement, but it's leaving a lot of work that needs to be done. And the infrastructure funding is great, but that's another 30-ish% increase in the funding. So, if we see 30% more work coming in the door with, 20 or 30% of our workforce leaving, we're all going to be really busy. So selfishly, I don't want to work that hard. So we need more people in the industry to spread this this load around. So a lot of things we talked about, I think, are really important about that. Just communicating out to people. A lot of people don't know we even exist as an industry. So letting people know. If you got a kid or a nephew or a friend who's trying to think about that next job or what they're going to do after high school, hey, water's a great industry to get into. But we need to be talking about it more, just getting out and doing that. But diversity, equity, inclusion is a big piece of this as well. One of the reasons we have a workforce challenge is because we are kind of in a very narrow demographic right now in terms of most of our workforce. So there's a huge untapped pool of resources in all of our communities that we aren't doing as good of a job as we need to be or reaching out to now. So as I look forward to the challenges we have, how we're going to spend the funding that's out there, we're going to need more people to do it. And it's such a great opportunity. Like I said, I couldn't be happier in this career. And I want everybody to have the same great experience I have. So bring them in.
I think that's right. And it's so many different jobs within the water space. We talked about engineering. We have operators that we have, marketing, we have sales, we have just name it, and they are in the water industry, right? And so if you're out there and you want to have a job that matters, then think about this, and think about this for your children too. I have a little engineer mind. My middle child, he always says he's going to be an engineer, and I say, okay, well, maybe environmental engineering. I'll have to let him listen to this one. Thank you so much, Jamie. I appreciate your time and all that you're doing there at WEF in our community.
Great, thanks, Charli.
And we're back. Charli, I'm so happy that you got Jamie on the show, especially so soon after WEF. Like you mentioned at the top of the interview, we both saw him speak at WEF Tech this past fall, and he got up introducing himself as the new president and just said, it's our responsibility to tell our story and to get marketing and media involved to tell water's story. And immediately I was like, Charli, he has to be on the podcast. He just said, he needs to share his story. That's what we do. And he did such a wonderful job. And one of the big things that really stuck with me was that he was talking a lot about politics and how we need to advocate for infrastructure spending. And now that we've got more, how we need to make sure that we're telling our positive story. And I think right now in the landscape of U.S. politics is something that none of us want to talk about. If we do talk about it, it makes us angry. You definitely don't want to talk about it at work because you might make people angry. But to hear him talk about it in a way that can make change for the industry in a positive way, that's nonpartisan. Everyone needs water and clean water and needs the dirty water taken away. Just kind of reinvigorated my faith in humanity almost a little bit, and how we can see politics be a positive force for our industry, I think.
Yeah, and I think we do have to look at it. There's several things that we're going to cover this year or this season. Yeah. And I want to make sure that, that we do have the right people on here, but that I loved what he said about industry because there's so much industry there in Colorado, but then also taking care of that beautiful space that we have. So you can do both. And we have to look at that. We have to look at our environment and how some of the things that we're building have to live there and sustain and be more sustainable for the long run. So I'm excited about this. We want to hear from you and what you thought about the interview as well.
Yeah, definitely reach out and connect with him on social media. His links and his bio are going to be in the show notes. And like Charli said, let us know what you thought about the interview on LinkedIn. When you see the post, comment and, let us know your key takeaways. I know Leroy's going to be there letting us know what he enjoyed about this interview. And we hope that the rest of our listeners can do that as well.
This brings us to the end of our show. We did it. We're back. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Not too many bumps in the road. We'll be back next week for sure. While you're here, please subscribe, rate and review the podcast. Leave a comment on YouTube wherever you're listening to us. We just love to hear from you.
Yeah, you can always reach us at Empowering Pumps or using the hashtag Empowering Industry Podcast. Email me podcast@empoweringpumps.com or email Bethany at podcast@empoweringpumps.com.
Need to check that.
Yeah.
And
we've got it.
We'll be back next Monday with a new episode.
So until then, be empowering. Birthday girl. It's coming. Oh. Great blooper.
Yeah.